I think if there's one thing we can all agree on when it comes to Pokémon Legends Z-A, it's that the majority of the new Mega evolutions introduced have really good designs. Not all of them, of course, but regardless, I feel like Megas coming back in general was just really fun. Getting to see more old Pokemon get the attention they deserve, and in some cases, another chance at being stronger than they would have been otherwise. Which is one of the main reasons why hundreds of fans continue to design their own Megas for Pokemon that still haven't gotten one yet. And that's exactly what I'll be doing in this video. Obviously. Technically, I've actually designed a new Mega on this channel before. Almost 2 years ago. Seriously, what happened, man? But in that video, I predicted that Game Freak would give Charizard a third Mega, Mega Charizard Z, bearing somewhat of a resemblance to Zygarde. Which, yes, I understand now, was a very novel and original concept not a single person had ever done before. Yet despite all that, I'm scrapping it, since as cool as it looks, it doesn't really fit the rest of the Megas I'll be making in this video. Also, it just looks way too much like Zygarde, like come on man. Before we get into this video, I just want to take note of a few things. For starters, all of the Megas in this video were drawn with pencil before being traced and colored digitally. This is mainly because I draw best on paper and I don't currently have the tools to draw from scratch digitally. Unless you guys want me to use my finger like a madman. Basically what this means is that the time lapses I'll be showing on screen won't really be the process of the designs, since I've already gone through that. It'll instead be the tracing and coloring process. But don't fret, I'm still going to talk about the inspirations I had, as well as the struggles, even if you guys don't get to see it with your own two eyes. Secondly, I'm going to try to stay as close to the official Mega design philosophies as possible. As much as I would love to just go batshit crazy for some of them, I feel like it's more fun to create these designs with the mindset of them being able to fit into official Pokemon media. I know a lot of artists make crazy designs with wild proportions, and I get why, because it's fun, and more power to you. But I feel more cozy picturing my designs in an official game, even if that'll never happen. But that's the semantics out of the way. So how many Megas did I make for this video? 10. Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said I made a bunch. The things I do for you guys. In all seriousness, I'm actually really excited to share them all with you. So let's get started by talking about Mega Charizard Z. Now you might be wondering, didn't I just scrap this Mega? Yes. However, he's only here as a segue to the actual first Mega. Charizard is one of only 3 Pokemon that got X and Y Megas, the other 2 being Mewtwo and Raichu. I'm pretty happy with the Megas the first 2 got, as I feel they're pretty decent extensions of their base forms. Yeah, Mega Mewtwo X's design is kinda buns, but the Y Mega is S tier, so it makes up for it. Both of Charizard's Megas are pretty good, however, Charizard gets a lot of fan service. Probably the most out of any Pokemon, so I don't really want to give him another Mega, as cool as it would be. And then we get to Raichu. Now, I was extremely excited when they announced 2 Megas for Raichu. Like, my favorite Gen 1 electric type is finally getting something after years of its pre-evolution stealing its thunder. However, a lot of people have criticisms about these Megas, one of which being the fact that they're both pure electric type. Like, come on guys, they couldn't have at least gotten fighting or fairy or something? Anything? Whatever. But the main criticism being passed around is the fact that these are kinda just Mega Pikachu. And like, I totally get people saying that about the Y form, because like, yeah, that's just orange Pikachu. But the X form is like a cooler Raichu. Oh wait, it has Pikachu's colors. Like, it's still my favorite of the 2, especially when it flies around. Like, come on, you gotta admit he has sauce. But I do agree it was a pretty baffling design choice overall, as it kinda just takes more focus away from Raichu and shoves it all back towards the yellow mouse guy. Even if both design elements are pretty balanced, why even make them look like Pikachu? Oh right, stupid question. Don't get me wrong, I do like them to an extent. But I also wish they were more, well, Raichu. So that's why I'm going back to the Z Mega idea. Absol, Lucario, and Garchomp are currently the only Pokemon with Z Megas. However, Z Megas are a bit more unique to normal Megas. Z Megas are more powerful but last much shorter than usual Megas. Plus, they seem to only be given to Pokemon that only had one single pre-existing Mega, so no X or Y nonsense, just a normal Mega. So if I were to give Raichu a Z Mega, this would technically mean breaking the rules when it comes to giving out Z Megas, since, as we discussed, he already has 2. But I'm still doing it anyway, because I want my boy to have a better Mega. Hey, wait a minute, didn't you say earlier that you were gonna try to be as faithful to the official games as possible? Okay, well, first of all, I was mainly talking about the designs of the Megas themselves, and secondly, shh. So I'm writing the script without knowing where it all tracks in the actual time-lapse, so forgive me if I say something too early or too late, like if I mention something about the colors before I actually start coloring, etc. But yeah, as some of you can probably tell, the main inspiration I had for this Mega was Gorochu, a Raichu evolution that was scrapped during the development of the Gen 1 games. Everyone and their mom has done their own interpretations of Gorochu, because the idea of a rejected member from the Pikachu line that had horns and fangs sounds incredibly badass. obviously. Now, even though it was the primary inspiration, I didn't want it to look entirely like that description. Another thing I wanted to prioritize was making sure it still looked like Raichu. So I wasn't going to make it red like most people do when designing their own Gorochus. I should probably stop saying Gorochu because it really didn't factor into the design as much as I made it out to be. I did add the fangs though, which the official Mega Raichus actually have, so I wonder if they also took some inspiration from Gorochu. One of my friends told me that might be a stretch, but like none of the other members of the Pikachu line actually have fangs. I guess in the anime Raichu sort of has like canines, but you don't really see those in the game, so I digress. I decided to shape the base of the ears like Pikachu's ears because despite the focus of this design being to make it as Raichu coded as possible, I did still want to have a small remnant of the inspiration for the other two Megas. You know, the whole mixing Pikachu and Raichu features together thing that most people hate. I mostly just did this because I knew if it was Game Freak making this design, they would still try to sneak something Pikachu related in, due to their lack of integrity. But mainly because it just works weirdly well with the rest of Raichu's ear shape. Honestly, if this was official, I feel like most people wouldn't even notice that detail. The mohawk thing is mainly there to fill empty space, but I think it looks cool. I used dark orange for the outlines of all the electrical parts, so visually they looked less solid than the actual body. And even though I thought the green Zygarde stuff on Charizard was a little annoying, I did still put a little bit of green on Raichu. I don't know, even without the notion that it's there because it's a Z Mega and Zygarde is the letter Z, I think the gradient looks really nice. Fun fact, I almost killed a huge chunk of progress during this whole digital process. The app I used to trace and color my art, Ibis Paint, kicked me out because of storage issues on my phone. And when I went back in, the project icon showed like what I had so far an hour before all that happened. Luckily, it was just a false alarm and everything was still saved, despite the storage issue breaking the app a little bit at first. But I genuinely almost gave up after that. I felt so awful. This video might not even exist because I actually made this design back in November before I even had the idea to make Megas for a video. So in a way, Mega Raichu Z is what started this whole ordeal in the first place. Or maybe it was the fact that the official Mega Raichus were so mid that I was incentivized to make my very own Mega Raichu. I don't know. Mega Raichu Z, an electric and fighting type. It uses the electricity stored in its Z-shaped tail to sink its fangs into its opponents, petrifying them. This act may negatively affect the bloodstream of any victims. So if you were paying attention to your screen just now, I'm going to be presenting shinies of all the Megas I make as well. However, after making Mega Raichu Z shiny, I'm kind of stuck on which color the base form should be, since the colors on the shiny here would honestly work pretty well as the base form colors as well, with the original base form's colors becoming the shiny. And it works especially well because all the official Z Megas that were released, except Garchomp Z, have different colors than their original forms. Honestly, I think I'm going to let you guys decide in the comments because I can't really figure it out. But until then, I think I'm just going to stick with the orange one for the default and the red one as the shiny, just for now. But regardless, I feel like this Mega does a much better job representing our boy Raichu. You deserve the world, buddy. But we're gonna pull a Game Freak and forget about you now. Generation 1. Probably the most overused generation in the entire series. Why did I say probably? Like that's 100%. It is the most overused generation. Forget it. Though despite this, many Pokemon introduced here have been shafted for way longer than they should have. So much to the point where MNJTV, a relatively small Pokemon channel, made an entire video coming up with ways to make these Pokemon no longer feel left out. I'd recommend watching it if you haven't already, which, let's be honest, you probably have. But one of the many things he did was give several of these Pokemon Mega Evolutions, and one of those Pokemon in particular was Golduck. The idea was basically to enlarge the gem on its forehead and finally give it the Psychic type. So he and his artist eventually came up with this design, and in all honesty, I think they did a pretty good job. So I'm just gonna borrow this for a sec if you don't mind. Now don't worry, I still have like 8 of my own original designs to talk about later in the video, but I just really couldn't pass up the opportunity to do my own take on this idea, because I really like it a lot, and I'm not taking credit for the idea or anything. Think of this as like a little retake that's still a big part of the group. But yeah, obviously I still went with my own take in certain ways. I made the gem about 30 times bigger, gave it some feathers, and made its claws super long. Though that last thing was actually just because I forgot how small Golduck's claws actually are, but I still think they work well, since most Mega Evolutions increase the size or length of a Pokemon's body parts. The beak, however, is actually a consequence of me not using a reference image when sketching the design. I completely forgot just how huge Golduck's beak is. It's pretty much the exact same shape as the Mighty Eagle's beak. Damn, that's a throwback. But I kinda just decided to keep the beak small, since it works better for this design in my opinion. And it also just looks more like a duck's bill anyway. I think shading the huge ass gem was my favorite part. Like, I still don't know how I pulled it off, since I was actually kind of worried about making it look really bad. But I'm super happy with how shiny it turned out. Like, it looks like a lollipop or something. And it also completely steals the show compared to the rest of the shading I did, which is pretty subpar in my opinion and makes the design look a bit odd. But let me know if you guys are happy with the shading or if you want me to polish some stuff up later. Okay, so update. The problem was not the shading. I was actually an idiot who didn't notice the outline brush came out too thin because the size of the canvas was significantly bigger than usual. So yeah, just now I made the thickness look more consistent with the rest of the Megas, and now it looks great. It's a small difference, but way easier on the eyes. Mega Golduck, a water and psychic type. The now bulbous gem on its forehead is fused with its skull, awakening its true psychic abilities. It can manipulate reality without breaking a sweat. Before we move on to the next one, as a bonus, here's an original sketch of this design I did back in like November, before I even thought of this video. The only differences are the pose, lack of feathers, and the gem being slightly smaller. I suppose I redrew it recently because making the gem ever so slightly bigger was finally enough to warrant giving it the psychic type. Isn't it dumb how they made the Slowpoke line psychic type but not Golduck? You know, the evolution of Psyduck. Gen 1, man. But yeah, special thanks to M&J for unintentionally inspiring me despite not knowing I exist. But if you do and you're watching this, then hi. I'm doing Mega Miltank next. You might be wondering why I'd ever consider such a thing. Well, I just thought it would be fun to test my abilities by making a design that's as weird as possible without bordering on disturbing. And eventually, I came up with this. It's hideous. Let's color it. So jokes aside, I actually think this perfectly matches the intention I was going for. I was just sitting in the backseat of my car with my sketchbook, letting the thoughts run through my head, until eventually I had a brilliant idea. What if I made a Mega Miltank? Of course, as I mentioned earlier, I ultimately decided that if a Mega for Miltank were to ever be worth drawing, it would have to be something crazy. And eventually, it hit me. An image flashed in my mind of Miltank's body resting on its now enlarged udder, with its similarly enlarged nipples now acting as its new way of traversal, all of which culminating into one giant sentient udder in the shape of a bull. Guys, I think I just saved art. Okay, but actually I did just say jokes aside, so I'm gonna fall back on that. Mikey, if you're actually watching this, I'm terribly sorry. Feel free to skip this part if you want. That includes anyone else who feels uncomfortable, which I'm quite sure is the mass majority. Also, to clarify, I didn't intend for the nose ring on the udder to look like a nipple piercing. I showed this to a friend and they thought it was, but I meant for it to be a nose ring because I couldn't think of another way to make it look more like a bowl. Actually, maybe now that I look at it a bit more, it kinda doesn't look like a nipple piercing. I don't know. Maybe I'll set up a poll or let you guys give me feedback in the comments. Does it look like a nipple piercing? Yes or no? Oh yeah, also the ears became hardened, sort of like Berserker's helmet thing, to act as the horns for the udder. It uses its ear horns to like attack things and stuff. It's pretty cool. Or maybe you think it's weird as hell, but honestly you'd still be correct. My intention was to make the udder fully pink, but then I realized Miltank's body is already pink and its udder is actually yellow with pink nipples. I know, it's weird. But luckily I was still able to work around this, and honestly, I think it looks better without the flat colors. In fact, the spots I give it make it look more like an actual bovine, so that's neat. Until you think about it for more than 2 seconds and remember this is also I can make a giant breast look more like a living creature. Man, I really hope this video doesn't get demonetized over Miltank. Though I guess inconveniencing me would be pretty in character for it. Mega Miltank, a normal type. Its muscles have spread to its udder, allowing it to traverse with ease. A fierce blow with its large hardened ears can be fatal. Well, that's over with. Who else is hungry? Oh, wait, you guys probably lost your appetite after that last Mega. Skill issue. Now, most of these Megas, even ones that might appear in potential future videos, weren't actually thought up for this channel, or for any video at all, at least at first. They were mainly for fun. But of course, I saw the opportunity and decided to go with it, especially after I had already made the digital art for Raichu and Miltank. But anyways, about 2 months ago, I was looking through the National Pokédex to try and figure out which Pokemon I wanted to make Megas of, which I guess could apply to most of the ones I've discussed thus far. But the reason I'm bringing it up here is because I listed a lot of Gen 9 Pokemon I wanted to give Megas to. Like a lot. But eventually I snapped back to reality and whittled down the list a bit. I scrapped both Armarouge and Ceruledge because I didn't know how to make them even cooler than they already are. Orthworm because I didn't know how I could progress the bullet train concept. And Hydrapple because it already kind of looks like a Mega. But out of all those favorites, the one Pokemon that surprisingly sat on that list was Doxbun. Which is funny, right? People have already unanimously agreed that the natural progression for the Fido line, if they ever decided to make a third stage, or Mega, would be making it burnt bread. Like, it makes sense. You got raw dough that evolves into firm yet sweet bread, so what if that bread got overbaked? It's an idea that's been done to death at least one time. I could only find one example of a burnt Mega Darkspawn. By Stellalas, or I don't know how to pronounce it, on Twitter. Huh. I guess the idea really isn't that obvious after all. You know what? Nah. I'm gonna do my own thing. So eventually, a different idea dawned on me. One that I knew was too perfect of an opportunity to pass up. Something that the region of Paldea is well known for, and has an essential game mechanic dedicated towards it. Do you guys like sandwiches? Preferably ones with ham, turkey, cheese, lettuce, and or mayo? You don't have to say anything. I know you do. Boom, sandwich dog. Let's give it some color. I know some of you might argue Darkspawn is actually a pastry and not just bread, but like, I checked Bulbapedia and yep, sure enough, it's just bread. Its whole concept is literally based on a pun. It's pure bread. Like pure bread. Because it's bread. And not a pastry. Argue with the invisible barrier. Now, I did also consider making it a hot dog, since Darkspawn is also a dachshund, which is another name for wiener dogs. But I can't really imagine brioche hot dog buns working very well with hot dogs in terms of taste. I've had brioche buns with burgers before, and I think they would work decently well with sandwich ingredients. So yeah, I made sandwich dog. I decided to make the ears and tail different bun shapes because I thought it'd be neat. And honestly, I was kind of nervous the darker shading on Darkspawn would look too overcooked for the vibe I was going for. But as you can probably see, depending on where the time-lapse is currently at, it came out way better than I expected. Obviously I elongated it to make it a foot long, because dachshunds are long and it makes sense. Also, the red parts aren't actually tomatoes. I tried making them pink like ham, but the shading gives off the illusion of them being red. Honestly, I don't think lettuce, cheese, and tomato really go well together on their own. You definitely need some meat in there. And that's kind of everything, to be honest. It's really hard to just find things to ramble on about to keep things interesting. Like, I envy Jack from Subjectively's ability to ad-lib when talking about his Fakemon during time-lapses, though I guess it's easier because they aren't necessarily simple ideas most of the time. Like, he'll make a Pokemon and it'll be visually simple, but it'll also have a lot of inspirations and lore to discuss. Meanwhile, most of my Megas so far have just been, hey, I took this thing and made it another thing. Which I guess isn't really a bad thing, but I'm neurodivergent and really like talking, so if I need to speak but don't have anything to talk about, I will physically explode. Mega Darkspawn, a fairy and grass type. The colorful fur on its body messes with its pre-existing scent to produce an irresistible aroma that dazes anyone who comes near. Also, the shiny is based on Cheesecake Factory bread, just in case you guys wanted to know. Alright, I think it's time for a lunch break. But in the meantime, if you like what you've seen so far, please consider subscribing. I know everyone says this, but it would really help out a lot. I'm definitely dipping my toes into Pokemon content again, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, let's make some more Megas. Oh, right, I'm still hungry. You'll do nicely. Oh, there's some orange chicken under Mega Darkspawn here. That'll do. Well, I'm good. Back to the video. So I think we all know by this point that not every Mega has to be super crazy design-wise. Some of the best Megas are relatively simple in terms of changes from the original. Sometimes that goes a bit too far, but usually it works out. So if a Pokemon doesn't really have any crazy origins or very much inspiration, I think it's perfectly fine to give it a Mega that just extends some of its pre-existing features. Granted, I do like a bit more meat to chew on when it comes to Mega designs, but typically I'm not very skilled at making more complicated designs, so you'll just have to stick with my mild mediocrity. With that being said, I've always been a fan of Crobat. Not that Crobat is mediocre. I mean, he kind of is, but we love him for it. I remember when Gen 2 Pokemon were first introduced to Pokemon Go, and it was one of the first new evolutions I got. His design is cool, I like how it's a friendship evolution for some reason. No, really, I genuinely like the idea of forming a strong enough bond with a Golbat that it turns into an even cooler bat. It kinda gaslit me into liking Crobat way more than I would have otherwise. Which is funny because Swoobat evolves by friendship, and yet I still don't give a shit about that thing. Sorry Swoobat fans, but your favorite is simply a drop in the ocean of hundreds of Pokemon that I don't really care about. So don't take it personally. Though honestly, it's just an opinion, so you shouldn't take it personally regardless. Anyways, let's get to the time-lapse. So as you can see, the design is relatively simple. I've definitely seen way cooler Mega Crobat designs than the one I made for this video, but honestly, I think that's okay. Like I said earlier, I find enjoyment in making designs I feel like Game Freak would ultimately go for. Like, despite how cool it would be to have a Mega Crobat based on a new concept that changes it drastically or gives it a new color to complement that, ultimately, this thing is just a big bat. And I'm gonna be real, the Mega should just be a big bat with more wings. Now, I'm not saying Game Freak never does experimental or complicated designs, especially for evolutions. I mean, look at Annihilate. They could have just phoned it in and made it a gray primate, but it looks almost nothing like its pre-evolutions. Granted, it still has that rounded shape, and obviously features that still come from primate, but the changes here are way more than what would have been passable. Its wristbands were broken, it has big flowing hair, and it just looks so aged. No offense, Annihilate, but it happens to the best of us. I know we're talking about Megas, but I just wanted to prove to you guys that I don't think simple designs are all Game Freak is capable of. I just do them if I feel like it fits the Pokemon. And with Mega Golbat here especially, I think this is still a natural way to take the design without straying too far from the original. Like, in theory, I could do that. Multiple Megas have done that, and a lot of the times come out great. But I don't know, sometimes less is more, I guess. And like, come on, I doubled this thing's wing count. That's gotta count for something. By the way, I originally shaded this thing like how I normally shade my artwork, with flat colors, but later I realized it does not look good on Pokemon art trying to replicate the Sugimori style, so I changed it to watercolor. And I know what you're gonna say, yes, I only did flat colors initially because I was lazy, but like I said, it's watercolor now. I've learned the error of my ways. Oh yeah, before any of you comment about how much Mega Crobat's head looks like Gengar's body, I decided to channel the laziness I had using flat color shading into not fixing Crobat's head shape to distinguish it from Gengar. Sorry, not sorry. Also, they look very similar, so you can't get mad at me. Similar to how I channeled my laziness, channel your anger from me to the Game Freak executives. I know it would make more sense to channel your anger towards whoever designed Crobat, but that wouldn't help anybody. Just go into a blind rage towards the executives, and while you're at it, convince them to give their developers more time and money. Because as much as I've enjoyed a lot of the recent games, the quality has been rather mixed, and I'm genuinely afraid for the future of this franchise because... Wait, what was this about again? Oh yeah, Crobat. I like how it turned out. And that's kind of it. Just a neat little Mega. Mega Crobat, a poison flying type. It has trouble getting used to its additional wings, as their movement must be precise to keep itself in the air, but a strong enough bond with its trainer makes this light work. Alright, so we're just gonna jump straight into this next one, which is actually another Pokemon I'm fond of, similar to Crobat. Fortress has always been somewhat interesting to me, because like, what even is it? I know its pre-evolution Pineco is a bagworm. No, it's not a pinecone like I initially thought when I was younger. But Fortress doesn't resemble that at all. According to its origin, it seems to be living inside a giant walnut, or a conker shell, I guess? So then what are those red parts? Its body? Another shell? You know what? Doesn't matter. I can work with this. So I'm really not sure where my liking to Fortress comes from. I guess because it has cool cannons, a cool name, and like, it has red on it, which is, of course, a very important factor in becoming my favorite thing in any piece of media. Red is literally the best color, and anyone who thinks otherwise is lying to themselves. Well, there's also purple. Purple is also pretty cool. And orange. And blue. And literally the entire color wheel, but other than that, the rest of the colors suck. Anyways, you might be surprised I haven't actually brought up the actual sketch yet, since it's been on screen for about half a minute now. Yeah, basically I just took Fortress and gave it more, am I allowed to monetize this video if I say the G word in it? Like, this isn't even a bit. I genuinely want to know if... screw it. Guns! I gave it more guns. Or cannons. Shit, I should have just said cannons. Too late now. But back to the design, I changed up its shell and gave it a more distinct mold, as well as comprising it of actual steel, because Fortress is a steel type and such. Also, if you look close enough, I'm not actually sure if the extra cannons protruding from the shell are anatomically correct based on how I drew them. Like, there should probably be a gap between the cannons and where they poke out, so that they're not scraping up against the edges. But I feel like simply getting the idea across is enough, and who knows, maybe the cannons aren't retractable. That would probably make hypothetical attack animations for this guy much lamer, but at least I won't have to take 3 seconds to add in those tiny gaps. I decided to make Bro angry as well. Not sure why, but honestly it makes him look and feel more powerful. But also I don't think I've ever seen a Fortress show facial expressions, or even blink for that matter. Then again, it has eyes, so we'll still go with it. It's probably angry because its cannons aren't retractable, but I wouldn't know. Oh wait, I literally made the design. Fine, they can retract. I guess he's just pissed because they're taking Sonic Boom off of Netflix. I feel you, buddy. Mega Fortress, a bug and steel type. With its impenetrable steel shell, it can deflect projectiles whilst blasting its own in every direction. However, being in this new form fully weakens the durability of its inner body. I think a pattern the last 6 megas all share is the fact that they all roughly share the same silhouette as their base forms. Except Miltank, I guess, but I don't really count that. And as faithful as it is to design megas this way, and the fact that it's still really fun regardless, I definitely still crave the chance to design something truly different. Something that takes the base form's inspiration and really goes crazy with it. But what Pokemon, not counting pre-evos, has such a broad inspiration that can be taken in almost any direction possible? How about the ice cream cone? Or I guess the double ice cream cone, obviously, because it's the final evolution of that line. But you might be wondering how on earth ice cream is an idea that can be stretched out into something bigger. I mean, I guess I can just show you the sketch. Look at it, it's beautiful.
Wow.
So yeah, at face value, I think most of you can tell it's meant to be a banana split. Which, fun fact, I've never actually eaten before. Honestly, I'm not really a huge banana guy, unless it's banana bread because that shit slaps, but I don't know, bananas and ice cream don't really seem like they'd fit. Or maybe I'm conflicted because I first heard about banana splits when I was like 2 years old and I kind of just accepted their existence, but then as I got older I sort of came to the conclusion that it sounds a bit gross. To anyone who's had a banana split, let me know if they actually taste good, I'm curious. But not only is it based on a banana split, it's also based on quadruple scoop ice cream. And I thought it'd be sort of like a cute detail where the main head is sort of put off by the weight of the other 3. Speaking of which, I don't really have an explanation for where the other 2 faces came from, but I swear there have been Megas before that randomly create life, like Mega Metagross spawning a couple Beldum and a Metang out of nowhere, and also Mega Tatsugiri spawning 2 other Tatsugiri. It's weird. So I think this is perfectly fine. Also, if you pay attention to the line art, I actually ended up switching the placement of the umbrella in one of the straws. This is because I forgot Vanillux's straw actually expels mist, and I wanted to make sure the design was at least somewhat symmetrical, because having a bunch of mist on one side and none on the other would leave a lot of empty space and just wouldn't look very good. Speaking of not looking very good, I get that the banana might not look entirely believable as one solid banana, since the first head takes up a lot of space in between. But the Vanillite line isn't actually made of snow, they're just ice. The snow parts are covering their true bodies, which means, in this design, there isn't actually one solid banana piercing through snow. It's just arms made of ice that just so happen to be shaped like the 2 ends of a banana, while also being attached to a body made of ice which is covered by snow. Also yes, for the shape of the banana, I was mildly inspired by the Bananium gems from Donkey Kong Bonanza. That game is peak, guys. I'm actually really impressed with the shading on this one too. Like, I genuinely surprised myself. It looks almost exactly like real ice. Okay, well, not literally like real ice, but you get what I mean. The craziest part is that I was actually kind of just spitballing. This design is definitely one of my top favorites I did for this video, so I'm really glad the colors and shading turned out great too. Also, as a bonus, I was watching Astrospith's FNAF fan game marathon while doing the digital stuff here. Really fun watch. That has nothing to do with anything else in this video, I just wanted to mention it because, well, mostly because I'm trying to increase runtime here. Oh wait, I don't need to. The time lapse is over. Neat. Mega Vanillux, an ice and fairy type. The main head is constantly struggling to stay afloat due to the weight of the other 3. As it manipulates the cold, the last scent before you freeze is a pleasant one. One thing about Megas is the fact that the majority of them belong to Gen 3 Pokemon. This is due to the fact that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were released in the same generation that introduced Megas, so I guess they sort of wanted to promote them a bit more. Which is probably a good thing because otherwise the best Mega wouldn't exist. But despite the fact that there are so many damn Gen 3 Megas, I still looked through the national decks and found a few Gen 3 Pokemon that I thought could use Megas. The one I'll be showing you guys in this video is Cacturne. Now yes, Cacturne could probably use a traditional evolution since it's not super strong, but like, it doesn't really read to me as a middle evo. It feels like the final line in a 2-stage evolution, and it is. So giving the line a 3rd stage would feel odd, at least to me. And besides, I have a pretty decent idea on how I can extend Cacturne's current design.
A ver, Cactus, quédate quieto un momento.
I decided to utilize the cactus part of Cacturne rather than the scarecrow part, which I actually completely forgot about until writing this part in the script. Whoops. But to be honest, how would I realistically make it more like a scarecrow without propping it up with a large piece of wood or something, or giving it like straw, I don't know. So yeah, I took the idea of cactus flowers and just kinda rolled with it. I did have an original sketch of this, sort of like with Golduck, but the reason I redrew it was because there were a few perspective issues I wanted to revise, despite the design itself being pretty perfect. But as for what the actual flowers do, I'm honestly not sure. Maybe they shoot projectiles or emit dark energy to attack, or deadly spores. I don't know, but I'd love to hear any suggestions. Honestly, I probably should have thought of that first before making the design, but sometimes I just want to make something cool, you know? Doesn't always need a biological explanation before making the design, even if that's the better way to do it, of course. I had so much trouble figuring out the color of the flowers because initially in my head they appeared to be a very dark bluish green, but then I tried it and it kind of messed with the other greens too much in the design. So I changed them to pink to be more accurate to real cactus flowers. And the ones from Minecraft, of course. I don't really know how much it looks like a dark type anymore, but like, just because the flowers are pink doesn't mean bro can't have aura. Pink's a cool color too. Speaking of colors, this was probably one of the only designs I had trouble giving a shiny to. I wanted to continue the autumn theme from the base form shiny, but then there was the issue of what color the flowers should be. I stuck with yellow for a while, but then I tried out red, and I don't know, both kind of look off to me. I know I've been coming to you guys a lot in this video, but it's mostly because feedback is important and stuff, and I'd really appreciate what shiny you guys think would work best. Mega Cacturn, a grass and dark type. A sinister chill fills the area when Cacturn's flowers unfold, like the feeling of stepping into the dark. Its movements become significantly swifter on cold nights. Man, it's getting way harder to do segues. Pseudo-legendaries. You know them, you love them, they'll whoop your ass. It's sort of crazy to me that Dragonite was the only pseudo-legendary that got a Mega in Legends Z-A.
Oh, that's so cool!
Before you guys say anything, I was young back then. I didn't know any better. Because Mega Dragonite is even more peaked than I could have ever anticipated. Suck on that, Mega Dragonite haters. But if you think it's bad, so long as you're civil about it, I totally respect that. Even if I personally think the headwings look sick as hell, I can understand why others would think it looks kinda dumb. But they're my dumb headwings, damn it! Also, if you want something Mega Dragonite related you'd actually be justified in complaining about, look at this. Why on Arceus' Green Earth would you call the Dragonite Megastone Dragonite? Dragonite? Like, dude, Dragonite is right there. Sure, it's still stupid, but at least it's intentionally stupid. Dragonite just sounds like they were genuinely trying to make the Megastone's name not sound dumb, but it didn't work. Genuinely, what was the thought process here, man? But let's just forget that whole tangent because now I have to edit all that. We're here to talk about the pseudo-legendaries that didn't get a Mega. Hydreigon, Goodra, Kommo-o, and Dragapult. Now, does anyone think it's weird that Goodra didn't get a Mega despite being introduced alongside Mega Evolution in the same generation? I mean, I know you can say that about all the Gen 6 Pokemon because none of them got Megas until ZA. Except Diancie, but who cares? But like, he's a pseudo-legend! A good handful of pseudo-legends got Megas, so why didn't Goodra get one in ZA at least? Whatever, that doesn't matter because we're gonna give him one right now. So you may have noticed earlier, but I've decided I'm gonna stop showing the sketches before the time-lapse because everything I could say about the sketch beforehand could also just be mentioned during the actual time-lapse itself. But also I should just get the equipment I need to sketch out ideas digitally, which I am working on. But as for the design itself, yeah, it's kinda just a way slimier Goodra with a bigger tail and tendrils. I've actually seen some really crazy and awesome looking Mega Goodra designs, but in my opinion they kinda stray a bit too far from the original design. Which isn't a problem as I've mentioned before, and I'm sure a lot of these are mainly for fun and aren't meant to be super faithful to the official Pokemon design philosophies. But even if that is the intention, I could still imagine Game Freak doing some of these if they decided to lock in. Today, however, you get to see the boring option. Jokes aside, there was actually some thought put into this design, and I was really happy with how the sketch turned out. It might not look as pleasant to me with the thinner outlines and choice of colors, but I still really like it. Not sure why, but I decided to make the goop on its stomach look like a tie? Well, not entirely. It's supposed to be a neat little pattern to fill space, but I guess it works as both. The knees are a bit harder to explain because, again, it was mostly just to fill space. I wanted there to be way more slime, of course, and the knees stuck out like a sore thumb because of how bare they initially looked. But with all this slime, you might be wondering if I'm finally going to give Goodra a second type. Like Poison, or maybe the Fairy type if you wanted to make a stretch. But I'm not going with either of those. As much as Poison seems like it would fit, there's nothing poisonous about the Goomy line. Unless you want to count the acid Sliggoo uses to melt its prey, but Goodra doesn't have that, so it can't be Poison type. And then Fairy doesn't work because, well, like I said earlier, it's a stretch. So what did I decide on? Water. And literally the only reason is because Sliggoo can only evolve when it's raining, and Goodra learns a bunch of water-type moves, including Rain Dance. So I thought giving it some extra stab would make it a bit stronger, I guess. Plus, I'm pretty sure Slime is like 90% water, so honestly, Goodra should have always been water-type. Such a weird-ass choice to make it pure dragon. Oh, another design-related thing. The horns in front of its tendrils look a lot like Goomy's tendrils, which was actually completely by mistake. Yeah, my original intention was just to make them look a bit bigger and different. But as a wise man once said, it was a happy accident. Mega Goodra, a dragon and water type. Due to a rapid change in Goodra's cells, the copious amounts of slime it excretes regenerates non-stop. This makes careless movements difficult, as it is in danger of slipping on excess slime. So that's all 9 Mega Evolutions I made for this little video idea I had. Not gonna lie, this was obviously very, very fun. I had such a blast designing these and coming up with ideas, even if ultimately a few of them were a little bare bones. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to... Wait, something isn't right. Did I say 9 megas at the start, or was it like 10 or something? What was that?
Hey, so, you forgot me.
Oh yeah, I did say 10 megas. How did I forget that?
You didn't. This is all scripted, remember?
Okay, well, no need to get meta about it. I'm sure the audience is well aware and simply activated their suspension of disbelief. Also, why do you sound like a twink?
Just draw the damn thing already.
So right away, you'll notice that on paper, I split this design into 2 separate pieces. This was mostly because the first sketch bordered the edge of the paper, leaving me unable to finish the whole thing. Plus, it just looked wonky regardless. So this is actually the first and only time so far that I've used 2 different drawings to make one full digitized artwork by linking them together during the line art phase. Bit of a mouthful, but hopefully that was easy to follow. Now let's talk about what this is even supposed to be. Marshadow might just be my second favorite mythical Pokemon of all time, and for a while, I felt like it would be cool if it got something special, like a G-Max form, which I actually did a long time ago, or perhaps a Mega Evolution. Now, I've seen some pretty cool Mega Marshadow designs in the past month. Honestly, I just looked it up for this video. Not necessarily to inspire me, just to see what ideas had already been done before, of course. And one pattern I noticed was the fact that all of the designs took inspiration from Marshadow's Zenith form, which has a really sick color palette, not gonna lie. And it makes sense why a lot of artists base their own Megas on it. But even if I admittedly did the exact same thing, gonna be real, there was also another idea that struck me at around the same time. And that was giving Marshadow a shadow. Actually, that statement was definitely anticlimactic because you've been staring at it the whole time I was talking. Unless you're one of those people who listen to my videos in the background while doing other stuff, which I totally respect. But also there was a dancing Esper on screen and you just missed it forever. Even if you switch tabs to rewind the video, it's still gone. Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, basically the shadow worked kind of like a mirror, moving the exact same as Marshadow. However, when Marshadow punches, the shadow's fist stretches out really far to actually be able to hit opponents. It's a bit silly, but it can also be read as cool in my opinion, especially if the punches are animated to feel like they really pack, well, a punch. I also thought it would be fun to sort of tease the idea that perhaps both the body and the shadow are completely separate entities that aren't tied to the same brain, even if it's never explicit. Like I'm imagining an idle animation where Marshadow is just checking his hand or something, and at first its shadow does the same, but then it briefly glances its eyes back and forth to make sure no one's watching, quickly scratches the back of its head, then phases back into perfect symmetry again. Just as like a cute little quality of life thing to make the concept more interesting. The colors I ended up going with from Marshadow itself kind of remind me of my favorite level from Super Mario Odyssey, Bowser's Kingdom, which has this absolutely beautiful Chinese aesthetic. It's weird how little Odyssey is talked about nowadays, even if I do like Galaxy a smidge more. Super excited for the movie, by the way, but we're getting heavily off topic here. What else? Oh yeah, don't ask why I gave Marshadow a cat bell. It's not supposed to be a cat bell. I don't know what it was supposed to be when I drew it, but it is not a cat bell. I know I'm acting like one of my friends told me that, sort of like the Mega Miltank titty piercing thing, but no, the cat bell was just something I noticed myself. Then again, it does feel like a fitting design element for some reason, but I'm genuinely not sure what it could possibly represent. Leave a comment if you guys know, only if you think you know what my brain took from when adding the cat bell that isn't a cat bell. Is it some sort of combat accessory or a design element from a different character known for martial arts? Let me know. Mega Marshadow, a ghost and fighting type. The second shadow copies its every move as faithfully as a mirror, with the exception of punches and kicks elongating to strike opponents. It is unknown if they share one mind. And now, finally, we have all 10 Mega Evolutions. And I don't have to do any more again for the rest of my life. Unless you guys want to make this a series, of course. As exhausting as it was to an extent, as I mentioned in the fake outro, this was a blast to make. And I have a bunch of other Pokemon on a list just waiting for a Mega design, so I have plenty of content for a continuation. But yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you guys in whatever I put out next. I've actually been thinking about posting more often in my second channel I made not too long ago, so be sure to give that some love. But with all that said and done, thanks for reading! What? Thanks for reading! No, it's thanks for watching, idiot. But you wrote those words, so clearly they're meant for people to read, bruh, so it's thanks for reading. Google Docs? Would you happen to know what a script is? Oh, this is a video. Yes! Now get out or I'm gonna stop using you and torture myself by learning Microsoft Word instead. Goodness, fine. Thanks for watching.